up, everyone? It's been a while, but welcome back to the Giant pregame show presented by Sherwood Ford. Tyler and Caroline here with you. Tyler, I miss you. Like, it's January 5th is the last time we've done this.
Yeah, no kidding. It has been a long time since we've previewed an Oilers game. And it feels good to have him back, though. It feels good to like the game day buzz, right? And I mean, the other thing, too, this long gap, I feel like it's helped maybe to an extent calm down the fan base a little bit here. Like, this is still a big game for them. They need to pick up wins. But even for the team on the ice, I think this break gave everyone just like a nice solid reset. Tensions were a bit too high for a while there.
They were on the ice, but still I feel like there's a lot of things happening in Edmonton. I feel like Edmonton right now is like not a messy place in a bad way, but there's just a lot of news constantly coming down the pipe, as you would know, Tyler, because you've done an excellent job reporting on everything on OilersNation.com. So right now, like, where are we at this point in the season? A 5-game losing streak, a lot of concerns within that 5-game losing streak that we've talked about plenty of times on our pregame show. Coaching and management, quote unquote drama, whatever you want to call it, Evander Kane rumors, Ken Holland presser, COVID-19 protocol. Like, where do we even begin? Do we want to start with the Ken Holland presser, which you and Bag Milk did such a great job on our YouTube channel? If you guys didn't if anyone listening hadn't had a chance to watch Ken Holland's presser, please go to our YouTube channel and watch Tyler break everything down with Bag Milk's condensed tweets. It was awesome. Very well done. So Tyler, I mean, thoughts on that and where we're heading?
First off, like you mentioned it, like we're in January. It feels like we've been through a full season and then some already. And this is only game 35 for the Edmonton Oilers. Like, we're not even close to the halfway point yet, Caroline. And yeah, the Holland presser, that definitely gave us something to talk about for a few days. A few surprising things in there for me. I found his comments about the goaltending pretty interesting, just in the sense that he said, you know, we got to get back to Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. He called them Schmitty and Koski. And he said he liked where Stuart Skinner was in the American Hockey League. And that was surprising to me because Stuart Skinner has the best numbers of that trio. And if you're trying to win games now, you think you'd want your best goalie here, but they clearly view Skinner as the goalie of the future. And he even said that he's a future NHL goalie. He's under contract for next year. And their priority is almost seemingly his development instead of making sure he can help them win games at the NHL level like he will be tonight. And I know that all broke down kind of weird. He's clearly has the back of head coach Dave Tippett and doesn't want to make a coaching change either. So those were the two big takeaways from me was, I mean, there wasn't a ton there. At least he came out and talked a little bit. And the goaltending and the coaching staff, I think he wants to keep it kind of status quo here if he can.
It was interesting because this was my first Ken Holland presser as an Oilers fan, right? So it was just interesting listening because I feel like he talked a lot, but said so little, if that makes sense, like a lot of contradictions. And I'm just like, I think he's playing it safe in some areas. I think the biggest issue I had was with Evander Kane, which we'll get to in a moment. But he mentioned, he believes in this team and that they're going to start winning. He believes in the coaching, the leadership, the determination, which is great. We want our GM to believe that. But I love what you said, Tyler, in kind of like your wrap up on YouTube, is that the bar can't be making playoffs. Like, we need to know, is this a team that can be a cup contender? And I really, really hope that Ken Holland, Dave Tippett, management in general knows what they're doing, because this is a team that has the two best players in the world. And we shouldn't be just talking about making the playoffs. We need to be talking about exactly what you said, winning playoff rounds and being a cup contender. And I think that even though we're not at the halfway mark in the season, we're at a crucial point of our season with all the issues that we've been dealing with and all of these like weird dramas that have been coming up in season that we need to start winning. Like, it's crucial that we start winning.
Yeah, I mean, we're not close to the midway point, but 2 points in game 35 means just as much as 2 points in game 76, 77. They're all 2 points in the standings, and the Oilers got to start banking some points because they're 3 points back of the San Jose Sharks in the playoff race. I know they have some games in hand, specifically on the Sharks and the Kings, who are holding kind of the final two Pacific Division spots. They're Sharks in a wild card, but Edmonton has to jump teams like Calgary and Winnipeg along with San Jose and LA. So you need to start picking up some points and at least keeping pace in the standings here. And that you mentioned the Ken Holland thing too. He didn't seem like he's in too much of a rush to move the first round pick for immediate help. And he talked about how he doesn't want to, just go for rentals at the deadline. It needs to be players who can help for a long time. And then you hear Elliot Friedman reporting that the Oilers don't have their first round pick on the table for a guy like Jacob Chychrun. And it's like, okay, so if you're not willing to move the first round pick when you have the two best players, like, what are we even doing here? What's the bar? Just to have like a feel good season? Maybe you miss the playoffs. Maybe you don't. Maybe you squeak in. Like, that can't be what the bar is here. And that was a really disappointing part of Holland's press conference. There was no urgency, it felt like.
I feel for, I am now an Oilers fan, but I feel for Oilers fans right now because you'd hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And I really hope that Ken Holland at this point in time knows what he's doing. He's keeping his cards close, and we get back to our winning ways, because again, it's great that our GM believes in us. It's another thing of executing it. Onto the Evander Kane subject, which is like blown up in the hockey world. It's not just Edmonton, It's NHL news, right? Here's the thing. Here's where I stand. I believe in second chances. I believe that people can change. With that being said, in this moment in time, I personally don't like this idea at all. We all know his past. We don't need to get into that here on our pregame show. We all know his abilities on the ice. But when you see an individual who continuously keeps going down the wrong path or making the wrong decisions time and time again, actions speak louder than words. And it makes me question what the rationale is behind this decision, if it's true, if the rumors are true. Earlier this year, he was issued a 21-game suspension for providing false COVID-19 vax papers. And here we are today for the violation of AHL COVID-19 protocols. It's the same thing with Evander Kane over and over again. There's always constantly this negative news story headline that's coming out about him. Unfortunately, I personally don't like it. And I think that if players in the Sharks locker room said that they don't want this guy on the team anymore, that says everything we need to know about the situation. And I really, really wonder what the rationale is behind it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Sharks thing. Like, a lot of people right now are thinking, he's not with the Sharks because of the COVID violations, which that was how they were able to get out of his contract, was the COVID violations. But Evander Kane wasn't with the San Jose Sharks to start the year because, like you said, the players in the locker room said, we don't want him back. And it got so bad that management went, wow, enough guys don't want him back. Even though he was our best player last year, we're not bringing him back. And that right there is telling, because he had problems when he was in Buffalo. He had problems when he was in Winnipeg. And then as soon as the veterans, Thornton and Marleau, leave San Jose, bang, there's problems in San Jose all of a sudden when there's no one there babysitting him. And I agree. I believe in second chances. I think everyone does. Everyone loves a feel-good redemption story. This is not a feel-good redemption story. This is a not great guy, kind of a bad dude who you maybe don't want to bring into a locker room that appears on the surface to be a little fragile right now in the Edmonton Oilers. So you know what? My other thing too, I think this is all irrelevant because he got suspended 21 games for breaking COVID protocol. The NHL is investigating him right now. If they didn't think they had him dead to rights and had a legitimate case against him, they wouldn't have let San Jose terminate the contract. I'm under the impression Evander Kane's going to be suspended again. And I would honestly at this point be a little surprised if that suspension is less than the 21 games he got earlier this year. I think this whole conversation at the end of the day might be irrelevant because the NHL is just going to say not happening.
And I hope if that's the case, there's at some point in time a position that Evander Kane's put in where he's forced to understand the consequences of his actions, because again, this is kind of like clockwork for him. And it's just unfortunate to see. And again, as a woman, we don't need to get into all of the issues that we've heard about Evander Kane. It's just he needs to be held accountable and actually start learning, because again, Tyler, we agree. People deserve a second chance. People can change. Everyone's on their own personal journey. Not to get too deep. This is a pregame show. But again, it's clockwork, and I hope the rumors aren't true, but I guess we'll be reporting on it at a different time when we find out if it is or it isn't. But right now, the last time that the Oilers played, like we said, January 5th, they played against the Leafs. We saw some positive moments against the Leafs. There were moments where they were buzzing. They need to bring that into their game tonight, because we are back on the ice. In our opposition report presented by Yegberger, the Oilers are currently 14-2 on the season. They're back at Rogers Place, which is a promising sign. You always like when the boys are back on home ice. They know what to expect, but they're taking on one of the worst teams in the Atlantic Division. With that being said, the Sens came off of a big 4-1 win against the Flames a couple of days ago. Obviously, Drake Batherson, Brady Tkachuk leading the way for this team. We've said this many times before in our pregame show at this point. It's a must win for the Oilers. Like, what better way to snap that losing streak than tonight against the Ottawa Senators?
And this is a matchup the Oilers have flat out dominated going back to last year in the Canadian division. Edmonton went 9-0. They outscored the Senators 41-18 in those games. McDavid and Draisaitl combined for 42 points together in those 9 games. That's insane. 26 of those points between the two of them at even strength as well. This is a matchup the Oilers have dominated. It's a Senators team that has started to take that step from just sort of inexperience to youthful and talented and an exciting style of hockey when you look up and down that roster and look at some of the guys who are having really, really good seasons. So they still show those moments of just being sort of young and inexperienced, but there's starting to be a lot of nights where this team looks competitive. And a great example was them taking down the Calgary Flames 4-1 earlier this week. So it's not a team you can take lightly, but this is a team the Oilers should win. And I think there's a lot of really promising things that you could take from the game against Toronto. They got some depth scoring with a guy like Lamborghini Perlini getting on the board. And I want to see him stick in the lineup more because he's playing some good hockey right now. And they worked really hard against Toronto. I think that's the hardest we've seen them work since this losing streak began at the beginning of December. And I think we talked about this a little bit, like embracing the adversity of not having McDavid. And I think they actually did that against Toronto because they seen that everyone just kind of pulled up their bootstraps and said, we got to work hard because we don't have 97 here to go end to end or bail us out or do anything like that. And I think they worked really, really hard against Toronto.
You know, it's so funny because in our last pregame show, I said, you know, maybe if the Oilers don't find a way to win, for them to at least take a baby step forward and play with heart and effort and intensity, because we hadn't seen that in a long time. I think that there were moments of that in the Leafs game. But then after the game, when I asked fans if that was enough for them at this point in time on Twitter, fans were not happy. Fans right now need a win. What will make fans happy right now if the Oilers come together and do everything they can to leave with a dub. So it's very interesting right now to see where Oilers fans are in the position that they're in. They're fed up. They want intensity, but they also want the results. So, you know, positives, of course, I agree with you to take away from that Leafs game. I also felt that way watching. Like, this is actually probably the most excited I've been watching the Oilers in a few weeks and maybe a month. But now they have the opportunity today to take on a team in the Atlantic who's not as good as the Leafs and bring that momentum and hopefully come out with a win that the fans and the organization so desperately need.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Like, you can forgive, like against Toronto, I kind of went away from that game and I was like, like they probably deserved a better fate. Toronto got a lot of kind of lucky, fluky goals that were bouncing in. Against Ottawa, you can't take a moral victory here. You need to play well, you need to work hard, and you absolutely need the 2 points.
Totally agree. Let's talk about the lines for the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, let's do it. That top line, Josh Norris with Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. Drake Batherson, 29 points on the season. He's actually going to be Ottawa's representative at the All-Star game this year. Nick Paul with Tim Stützle and Alex Formenton on the second line. Dylan Gambrell with Austin Watson and Zach Sanford. Chris Tierney with Scott Sabrin, the tough guy, and the former Oiler, Tyler Ennis on the left side. But even just reading out those lines, you can tell the depth of this Senators team really takes a step back going from the first line to the second line. And then it's a steep drop off going into that bottom six there. That's an area where the Oilers should be able to take advantage. The top D pairing tonight for the Senators expected to be Thomas Chabot on the left side. He's an absolute machine. I think he's a future Norris winner. And Jacob Bernard Docker on the right side. He's a former Oiler, but a former Okotoks Oiler down in the AJHL, and Alberta product, making his return to his home province. Artem Zub with Nick Holden, who's a St. Albert product, on the second pair. Eric Branston with Josh Brown, and we don't have word on a starting goalie for the Senators, but Matt Murray was in net when they picked up the win in Calgary, so I have a feeling it might be Matt Murray, but nothing confirmed from the Sens on that front.
Awesome, Tyler. And how about the lines for the Oilers presented by Deuce Vodka?
Well, a little bit of guessing here, but based on what we saw at the skate, I think we're going to see McDavid with Draisaitl and Kassian, McLeod with Hyman and Puljujarvi, Derek Ryan with Sevier and Yamamoto. And then the fourth line, the Oilers actually didn't have enough skaters to dress a full fourth line at practice the other day, but they had Perlini with Shore, and actually head coach Dave Tippett was speaking to the media, this via Jack Michaels a couple of hours ago. And he said that Fogle, Benson, and Cuckoo are all out of COVID protocols. And he said one of them will play tonight. I'm assuming that's going to be Warren Fogle. And I would imagine he's either going to be on the top line with McDavid and Draisaitl, and that would push Kassian down, or Fogle's just going to play on the fourth line with Perlini and Shore. We'll see what Tippett decides to do closer to warm-ups tonight. The D pairings for the Oilers, potentially a change coming here based on practice. They were really jumbling them around at their skate, but we did for a little bit see Nurse with Ceci, Keith with Barry, Lagesson with Bouchard. And I do think those are going to be the six defensemen that dress tonight. But the idea of going Nurse and Ceci, who I think have been the Oilers' best two defensemen in their own end this season, maybe Evan Bouchard should be in that mix a little bit, but Nurse and Ceci against a team like Ottawa, who really only has one good scoring line, when you have the last change, I don't mind that approach from Dave Tippett. Just staple Nurse and Ceci on that top line and let the Oilers' big guns up front get some better matchups. And I think that's the best way to handle this.
And between the pipes? Yeah, I was about to say, we're happy to see Stuart Skinner back between the pipes, and hopefully a big game for him where he continues, his performance, because Koskinen been a little shaky. We know Smith's out, so big game for Stuart Skinner, and I'm sure Oilers fans are really looking forward to watching him play.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 2 games since the beginning of December, and who's been in net for those 2 games? Stuart Skinner. So I was surprised to see him go back to the minors. I was hoping they would recall him eventually. It took another Mike Smith injury for him to finally get the call back up. But I love that Skinner's here, and I'm hoping he takes the ball and runs with it. Because if he keeps winning and keeps getting results, at some point, Ken Holland can't just say, well, he's young, I got to send him down. Like, if he continually gives you the best chance to win, you need to keep playing him. So I'm really rooting for Skinner tonight. He's got the best numbers of the 3 goalies. He's won his last 2 starts, and I have high expectations for him tonight against Ottawa.
100% agree, Tyler. And bet of the game presented by PointsBet. Who's the underdog? Who's the favorite? Give it to us.
Yeah, I mean, the Oilers are big time favorites in this one. Minus 216 on the money line. The Sens coming back on the other side at plus 170. The Oilers are minus 140 in regulation and plus 115 on the puck line. I think Edmonton's going to really, really dominate this matchup. I think they're going to be hungry coming out tonight. They haven't played in a long time. I think they're going to be really eager to put this losing streak behind them. And I think this almost feels like the start of a new season for them coming out. So I really like the Oilers to win. And I actually like the Oilers to finally get off to a hot start. My bet of the game, courtesy of PointsBet, I am taking the Oilers to win the first period. They got to win the first period. It's minus half a goal, but it's plus 120. I like the plus money odds here. I think they get off to a hot start and are up after the first against Ottawa.
Ken Holland, again, made it very clear he thinks that this team can win. There's no better game for the Oilers to snap that losing streak than here tonight on home ice against this Ottawa Senators team. We saw them buzz against the Leafs. We talked about this already in our pregame show. They just need to bring it again, eliminate that slow start, and understand that this is a must win, a crucial win. With everything going around in the organization, I think this win, a solid team performance, intensity, which we talk about, brings some life back into Edmonton, brings some light into the organization. I think it's very, very important at this moment in time, and give the fans what they want. We just want to win. We don't want much. We just want to win. So
there's been so many negative storylines. Like, just go stomp the Senators for us. Let us have fun on Twitter. Give us a McDavid highlight reel goal. Give us a stupid Draisaitl one-timer. Like, just good stuff to talk about. Please, Edmonton.
Honestly, we're doing our pregame shows. We're back at it. Hockey's hopefully, I don't want to jinx it. We're back consistently. And we just want the next pregame show. We just want to talk about everything positive. Tyler and I like being positive. We don't like reporting on negative news. So hopefully the Oilers get it done tonight. And Tyler will be back on the next giant pregame show presented